We have a very special guest here today, Mr. Navyug Mohnot.
Designing your life is about having a great career inside of a great life. I said, I'll do that. And again, and he said, there's just one problem. We don't have a textbook. We are going to write the textbook.
And sir, for somebody who is like starting out their company in consulting or services business, so what would be your advice? Like, should they focus on few customers and delivering more value to them?
Have the humility to know that you haven't got it right. And I think a lot of the mistakes, and I've also mentored and worked with a lot of startups, the classical mistake is they'll try too many things. And if you go to Shark Tank also and see the advice that all the sharks are given almost every time.
So what are some of the top 2 or 3 lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur which you carry in your heart?
Life and work aren't two different things.
What does success mean to you at this point in time? Have you ever paused to ask yourself, are you living a life by default or by design? You can reshape your path and truly design your own life. Welcome to the Champion Mindset podcast series. I'm Ikshwaku Sharma, and today we're diving deep into the art of designing not only work, but a life of purpose, passion, and possibility. And today we have a very special guest here today, Mr. Navyug Mohnot, who embodies this philosophy. With over 35 years of experience, he has worn many hats as a CEO, coach, and mentor. As the CEO of QGlue and QAI, he has championed design-led approach across businesses. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. He is a leadership coach trained by Harvard University and also a Stanford-trained Designing Your Life educator. Sir, welcome to this show, and we are so privileged to have you here today.
Thank you, Ikshwaku. My pleasure, and wonderful.
And sir, you've been such an inspiration and role model for me since I was looking to start my own entrepreneurial journey. And I stumbled across your profile and I've been following your work. So it has been such a motivation and remarkable journey for me personally to know you and to learn from you. And now as a mentor of Rescript Consultancy, you've been giving us so much valuable inputs for our business. So it's a true privilege to have you on this show today, sir.
That's very kind of you, Ikshwaku. Like I said, my pleasure, and thank you for the kind and gracious introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I wanted to reflect back on your journey, like when you completed your engineering at IIT. And I'm sure it must have been a very exciting journey studying at IIT. And then you went to study for your PhD. And then you decided to start your own company and come back. So how did it all happen? What was the motivation behind all this?
Well, yeah, a long story, but exciting. Well, I went to IIT because in those days, all my aunts, all my uncle, my mother and my father and everyone said, beta, you got to go to IIT. So, and once I got there, and after a little while, I realized that, I'm not having that much fun. And, and different things called to you. Engineering was rigorous. It was great. To learn and to be amidst some amazing people, but the subject matter itself wasn't that exciting to me.
So what were you studying?
I was, in those days, it was called electrical engineering and computer science, and it was what it was. But the good part was that IIT just gives you this complete freedom. A massive amount of resources, a lot of amazing, peer group. And the journey of life started there. And, and that I was studying electrical engineering was purely incidental. I would even hazard to say irrelevant. The real beauty and of all these years, I look back most fondly at those years. They were the defining years and they've served me well. And yet I've never used a line of engineering or electrical engineering ever. So that was the IIT stint, and then I went for a PhD program to US, and that also was, I would say, by accident. And well, while I say it was by accident, I also believe that in this life there are no accidents. So let me tell you about that. Everyone, you know how it was in those days. 40 out of 50 would go to US from a class, and everyone was applying. And I wanted, and it was a different world 35 years ago. You also wanted to go to US. But I didn't want to go and do a master's in engineering. So I said, I'll do an MBA. But everyone said, but you don't get scholarships for MBAs. And I said, I will. And in the end, I didn't. But out of the 7 MBA applications, there was one by accident. I received a PhD application from a friend of mine. I was passing down the corridor and he said, Navyug, I have a PhD, form from University of Rochester. I said, I'm not doing a PhD, boss. He said, just read it. And I read it. It was quite fascinating. So I applied for 6 MBAs, 1 PhD program, got 8 from none of the 6 MBAs, got a fellowship from a PhD program, and that got me to US. And by accident, I was in US. But it was, again, an amazing program that I was in. And so yeah, it all worked out.
No, glad. And sir, I could reflect back on my own engineering journey. So I also prepared for IIT, but missed it by a whisker. And then I did my engineering from NSIT. And during that time, I did in electronics and communication. So I also realized that engineering is not a thing for me. And I was reading a lot of books on philosophy, psychology. So those were the areas of interest. And actually, it was more of a self-discovery for me also. During the college. Like you get time to discover yourself while you're just passing through the engineering exams as well. So very interesting.
I can relate to that.
So very interesting, sir. And then how did your entrepreneurial journey start after that?
So then, once again, I was in IIT, in sitting in USA for this PhD program.
Yeah.
And they said, come early to study some foundational maths. I said, that's fine. I'll go and study maths. I've studied for 5 years in engineering, and the maths was so difficult.
The name itself sounds quite fancy.
In a business school.
Yeah.
I was in the business school doing a PhD, and I said, oh my God, now it's out of the frying pan into the fire. There's not. So anyway, to cut a long story short, my professor, Chaim Mendelson, who's now at Stanford, he's an amazing scholar. He started a new area called information systems economics. I said, I'll do that. And again, and he said, there's just one problem. We don't have a textbook. We are going to write the textbook. So I said, great. And then that took me into the whole stream of economics. And I loved it. And I suddenly realized how much I loved the whole discipline of economics. So for the next 2 years, it was all economics. I passed the exams, and then I started doing research, and then I lost my mom, and then I said, I'm going to go back to India for a year or two and just be with my dad and come back. And everyone said, come back for some while. And, of course, I'd like to go and just be with my dad. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started to look for ideas because I was giving my PhD program a pause. And then I kept looking for ideas, and I found QAI, which was a leading process improvement consulting firm. Another long story, but then got them to India and said, let's work together because, well, at that time, India had no IT industry, or there were a few companies, TCS and a few others. 35 years ago, the total was a $200 million industry. It's hundreds of billions today. But my conviction was that this is the space to be in. They worked with us. We got them to India, and we started doing consulting, and the entrepreneurial journey started. And I was meaning to go back to finish up my PhD program, but this was just so exciting, and I was truly enjoying entrepreneurship and many other things that happened. I won't get into too much detail, but everything was saying that stay back and do this, and so I never went back to finish a PhD, and that was the start of QAI, and it's been 30 years now.
So no, that's so fascinating. And sir, your entrepreneurial journey also is like by an accident, and I'm sorry to hear about your
Thank
mother.
you. No,
and
it is.
It was.
I
It
was
must have been a very difficult time for you, and
yeah. And then you just you got to work with the cards you're dealt with and make the best of it, and and in some ways all these were seeds, and instances and evidence of how one might design one's life, rather than wallow in self-pity or feel low. You try stuff, and I tried, got into IIT, but didn't enjoy it so much. Got into an amazing program where this professor was, pioneering something very new, that was wonderful, and yet. One had to be back in India and tried to set up a venture, tried that, and it worked. And lots of failures in between, which I'm not getting into, but that's the essence of what life is. It's an adventure, it's a mystery, and you just keep going, and I kept going. So it's been fun, lots of failures in between, but
but that's the part
what
of
makes it fun.
That's the part of learning.
That's what makes it, yeah.
And so, for somebody who is like starting out their company in consulting or services business, so what would be your advice? Like, should they focus on few customers and delivering more value to them, or should they like try to have a more broad set of customers?
I think like everything
for sustaining
else.
the business.
No, as for startups, as for a consulting firm, as for a service firm, you have to start small. You have to create impact and value. In that journey, you learn. And what in startups they call product market fit, you have a lot of feedback and a lot of tweaking and a lot of learning. Have the humility to know that you haven't got it right, and that you will learn along the way. And when you're focused and small, then your learning is efficient and not disastrous if you screw up also. And then once you've got that right and got a good handle on it, then you start to scale. So I think it's important, and especially more so in today's world when it's so competitive, and people have access to all kinds of tools, technologies, information, wisdom, thanks to the structure of the world today. You have to be bloody good. I think more so now than ever before. And you have to really go deep and get it right, and then start to scale. I think a lot of the mistakes, and I've also mentored and worked with a lot of startups, the classical mistake is they'll try too many things. And if you go to Shark Tank also and see the advice that all the sharks are given, almost every time they'll tell can you please reduce the SKUs? Can you please reduce the number of services or products you're doing? Can you please get that one big winner and then scale?
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
So what are some of the top 2 or 3 lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur which you carry in your heart?
Right. It's a realization through experience. And this goes back to an amazing, article and quote I'd read, where I think it was Forbes magazine that set out to say what has been the best definition of entrepreneurship till today. And they searched and researched, and I think it was Forbes, but check it out. And they found a quote by a Harvard professor in the 30s or early 40s. And I think that's the essence of entrepreneurship, and that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
And that is, and what he was saying, and they came to the conclusion this is the best definition of entrepreneurship, is a person who's got a mindset. Let me remember, who knows or who believes they can get outcomes without having control of the resources. So paraphrasing, I believe I can get this done. I can build a product. I can launch something, whatever it is. I have that conviction, belief, or what desire, whatever, without necessarily having all the resources. Because entrepreneurship journey is all about figuring it out. You may not have all the wisdom, you may not have all the money, you may not have all the team, you may not have all the market, but But the belief that you don't have control over it and yet you can make outcomes happen is truly entrepreneurship. And to me, that has stuck. That has been what I have come to learn and believe in. You can figure it out. You will get the money. You will get the counsel that you need. You just have to have the belief that you don't have to control it. Some people will say, I won't start till I get funding of, X lakh rupees. Start and then have the belief that you can raise it. And that's been my journey. I can tell you, when I was starting many years ago and I was looking for VC funding, I just believed that I could raise it. I mean, I started with 90,000 rupees. Some years later, we also raised funds. And I didn't know Excel. And I don't believe in business plans because next month it changes. And every startup in the world makes an Excel sheet of $1 billion and gets nowhere, and neither did we. So I just said that I'll get funding. I'll raise funding by telling my story. And everyone told me that, no, you have to build a business plan. I didn't say I don't know how to. I'll just tell my story. And guess what? 22 days later, we had money in the bank. 22,
That's great.
So you can find a way. And I think that's my learning. It doesn't matter. There is always a way forward, which is also the core philosophy and essence of designing your life. You can build your way forward towards happiness and flourishing. Just like you can build a venture towards profitability, customer satisfaction, and growth. The same a venture in some sense is a microcosm to life. And you can build the same thing and apply the same principles in how you build your life forward.
Interesting. And you're talking about entrepreneurial mindset is about being resourceful. Like even if you're not having the right resources, you will find the right resources and build and figure it out along the way. So that is, and coincidentally, sir, I have never prepared the business plan.
Okay.
For my company. I felt like, let me figure it out. Like,
no. So don't take this literally. This is not to all the listeners. This is not advice. It's like, not making a business plan is not good advice. It just worked that way. It's like they say, dropping out of school just because Bill Gates did it doesn't mean it's good advice and you should drop out of school. But do what works for you.
Yeah, and right now we are not seeking any investor or VC funding yet. So that's also the thing. But maybe we may need, but our strategy was that let's figure it out and test it out. So it was more experimentation and rolling out the products and training programs.
And you're in that stage of figuring stuff out, prototyping. So you don't want to put too much of numbers and certainty when you are in the discovery phase.
Yeah.
So I think I totally agree with your approach right now. Yeah. You're in the discovery phase, right?
Yeah. Last year, I hope we have overcome the discovery stage, and now we're kind of figuring out that this is probably the clear path we may want to take, or we may want to focus on these areas which have paid certain dividends
which
for us.
Which is wonderful to hear,
year.
Ikshwaku. So you invested that time in trying to figure things out, and you've got clarity now. And that's the way it should be done, rather than, okay, I know it and let's do this. And no, so wonderful to hear that. Yeah.
So, sir, actually, I just wanted to share how my designing your life journey started. So I stumbled upon this book. I heard the TED talk first and then read the book. And one of the key concepts actually I took from that was prototyping. Because I was in the process of starting my entrepreneurial journey. And I thought, let me start prototyping training programs. And I did the first training workshop in Pune for my program. And we got 7 participants.
Okay.
And only 2 were paid.
Okay.
And can you guess how much we were charging?
No.
2,000 rupees.
Okay.
So that was our first workshop, but that was a learning into entire design of the program. And we did almost spend 15,000 rupees for the paid campaign. So it was definitely not profitable at all, but the learning curve of social media campaign and everything was the learning. And that is how we have been running our business in terms of designing training programs, launching the video series and the podcast series. That first we create a prototype and then we kind of look forward for the learnings and then scale it up further. Right. And I wanted to learn from you, What was the moment when you got drawn to the DYL framework, designing your life framework in your life?
Okay, let me think. Ishwaku, it actually wasn't an epiphany or a one moment. I first kind of have been a design enthusiast. So even before designing your life, I was following design. I like all things design, art, design, architecture, film, the works. So the whole discipline of design was already fascinating to me. And like I said, I would rather have been in that world than the engineering world, but ended up in the entrepreneurial world, which is great, no regrets, lots of gratitude. But I'm just saying, so design on the side has always been a fascination. And how designers create a whole new world, a whole new space, a whole new venture, a whole new fashion thing, whatever. So so designs always fascinated me. Then you get a book which says, let's tap into the mind of designers and all the design principles that both the professors, Bill and Dave, they've been teaching design at Stanford, and what are the principles we can use for the most important project of our life, which is our life.
Yeah.
So how about design? So to cut a long story short, I think it was gradual. At the same time, once I read the book, it came from a very credible place called Stanford University. It was rooted in research, and it was validated for the last 15 years and was one of the bestsellers. So the immediate trust and credibility was established. I anyway had a fascination for this discipline. And now I reflected back and saw that, hey, you know what? We've used all these principles in our life. We just didn't know. So as we say, we were, unconsciously competent in life design. And then I said, how about being consciously competent in life design? So I studied it and went and did the coaching certification with them. That gave me some insight. Then I went and did the educators training and certification from Stanford. Then did the designing your life facilitators journey training and certification. So it just kind of kept building up. And but the penny dropped when I think I saw the book and where it came from and the cred that it comes with.
So you had a natural fascination for the design and the elements of design, and then you started looking how we can apply this concept in the frame of life, and then
Well, actually, yeah, I wasn't looking to how to apply it in life, but I saw someone applied it to life. And I said, all right, lovely. I mean, that was delightful.
And so, were you taking workshops for design thinking at that point of time when this framework was also being studied?
Yeah, little, yes.
Little.
Yes,
So you were already
yes.
into design.
I was into design in general, and then design thinking specifically to some extent, but a lot of my colleagues and team members were doing a lot more of that. And here for designing your life, I've rolled up my sleeves, and 30 years later, I'm standing up there 8 hours a day and saying, let's get back to the arena. You start that way, and then you become sitting in your corporate office and building something, which is great. But at the end, I'm just so delighted to be back in the arena, in front of customers, in front of people. And so it's a startup all over again, in some sense. And it's also a startup called, we are all startups, right? A startup called you. So we're, as a venture, we're also evolving ourselves.
But you have so much learnings from your previous experience to carry while taking
That
this
helps,
message forward.
That helps, and you try to codify your own wisdom as theirs. They have done theirs, and you put it out there, and it may make sense to some people. It may be good, it may be bad. I don't know. I just know that I'd like to express myself, and I'm expressing myself with what my learnings were and what their codification of this framework is. And it's up to the people to see if it's of value to them or not. One keeps one's eyes and ears open to get feedback, of course. But to a large extent, I feel so strongly about it that I have this huge need to express what I've learned and what they've codified to the world at large. And so it's really about that right now.
No, personally, since I've attended your workshop also, and I personally see a lot of value in the book and the framework because it helps you to experiment and learn and do things in a more risk-free manner.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, what stops person from trying out something is, do I need to leave my job altogether, or do I need to change something altogether? But it gives you that room and flexibility to try small and experiment, and that kind of helps in designing your life more effectively through experimentation. So I think that is immense
that,
value.
and lots of other tools and mindsets, and so it's nicely integrated. It's and once one internalizes it and starts to build that muscle, then I think these things start to kick in, and I'm hoping people will do that. So far, with the experiments and the interventions I've done, I'm getting very positive feedback. So I'm hugely encouraged to try and amplify this.
No, I have attended this workshop, and anybody who is hearing, I would recommend that please attend this workshop whenever it's happening. It's a great workshop for you to reflect back and take the learnings in your own life to design your own life. So, how much role of self-awareness is really there in designing your life framework, and how your self-awareness has evolved as you have started implementing this framework?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part first, and that is incredible amounts of learning and growth and self-awareness for me personally. And and again, cliched statement that if you want to learn something, teach. But it really came alive. The amount of study I've done, the amount of reflections, the number of conversations with amazing people like yourselves and over all the batches, the number of conversations from the bright students at Ashoka University, and there's so much to learn from everyone. And then you filter it, reflect it, process it. So it's been and I'm hugely grateful to the universe for this incredible journey of more learning and more growth as far as I'm concerned. And that's, as for all of us, work in progress. I'm learning every day more and more and more. And thanks to all of you, and thanks to all the work people have done. So I'm delighted to be back, well, not back, but on this journey of learning and growth. And the first part of your question was, what was the first part?
Like, how much is the role of self-awareness in the role of the DYL framework?
Ikshwaku, I think, here's this dichotomy, which is the magic. Herein lies the magic. Who was it? Was it Plato or Aristotle who said a life, an unexamined life is a life worth not...
It was Socrates.
An unexamined life is a life not worth living.
Not worth living, yeah.
But if you're only examining, then you're not living life.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Therefore, again, the dichotomy and the lovely magic is in the dance between self-awareness, which is very, very, very critical to our journeys, and with it, action. So going and toggling between awareness to action, and the learnings from there into this, and this informing that, and the ability to do that and build that muscle of going from awareness to action, and having what we call a bias to awareness and a bias to action. Now, a lot of people we've seen, and I was one, and we all have different shades of gray, but either we think a lot, and there are a whole lot of people who just act a lot. I think what one has learned from designing your life and through all the tools and exercises that we do is get people into being able to toggle between the two, and not say I'm A or B, but I can do both, and I can do and reflect a lot, be self-aware, be intentional, and I can take the experiments, put my neck out there, try stuff, and do discovery, and then go back to reflection. So the magic is in this dance.
No, it's so beautifully you described this concept, and in fact, like taking the reflections back. So I had this self-awareness maybe in 2013-14 that I wanted to start the company. But it is only in 2019 I started taking some action.
Yeah.
So the progress started happening. So having this self-awareness does not solve the problem. It is the action which makes the leap forward.
Which is fine, Ikshwaku. I think,
So, but
you start when you start, time comes. And
sometimes like it's just...
no, that's fine. Be kind to yourself, and when you have to start, you started, and now do what you have to do.
No, like I'm 43 right now, and some of the entrepreneurs are like half of my age and
That's
building
fine.
such great companies. So that's a. But yeah, everyone has their own learning curve, and
Everyone has their own journey.
And I don't regret the path I have taken so far. Like it has been a valuable
absolutely
experience.
No. I think you're doing such an amazing job, and who's to say what's more amazing than what, and who's younger, who's older.
And it's your life. Like
It's
coming back to designing your life, it's your own life.
It's
like,
your life, and you design it.
you design
And
it.
success is the way you want it to play out. And successful or a flourishing, happy life is not what others wanted it to play out as. So you're doing what you want to do.
And one of the important reflections I would want to take back from the workshop, which I still carry in my at the end of the workshop, that what you said beautifully was that how we are designing extraordinarily ordinary lives. So all of us may not want to have really extraordinary accomplishments, but we can still live an ordinary life in an extraordinary manner. That is really beautiful
Actually,
reflection.
That's
a very
liberating.
relevant, liberating. as well.
Of course, we must strive for doing extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
And again, with caveats there, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, we must be perfectly okay to have extraordinary, ordinary lives.
Yeah.
And that's a little liberating. And I believe, again, in the end, of course, we must strive for doing extraordinary stuff. But at the same time, we must be perfectly okay in the moments and in phases and in life to have an extraordinary, ordinary life. And that's actually very powerful. And most of the happy people in the world are having extraordinary, ordinary lives.
True.
You can even argue statistically that the very extraordinary people, the studies have shown, may not and often do not even have very happy lives. So whatever works for you, as long as we are at peace with it, and it's to what you want from your life, and you're at peace with it, and it's giving you happiness, that's what a well-designed life is.
And this phrase also gives us the room to enjoy little things in life. Like it's not only the accomplishment that gives us this entire source of joy. Like it is just spending time with the family or just going for that walk could be so much energizing and liberating for a person.
And those moments,
we don't miss, and we miss out on those moments of life.
And
which is so valuable.
Yes. And those are extraordinary moments.
Those are extraordinary moments. So that is what.
So one starts to think about all that and have a lot of gratitude and awareness.
So I think it is Robin Sharma who said that life, a day is a reflection of the life we live. So how do you design your ideal day? So what does your day look like?
Right. Nice question. And well, let me say this. I don't design my day. And maybe that's something I should do. I prefer to design my life.
Okay.
I don't design my month. For all these years, I did not design, with goals. And maybe that's a weakness or whatever. But hear me out. I just think that, of course, one is aware and intentional and mindful of health and play and work and life and learning, and all that is fine. And that's a day. I'm against a very regimented day. Maybe it's just me, or I'd like life to be spontaneous. I like to be in the moment. So my day is not very regimented that I have to spend so much, but I do attempt to spend X hours or X minutes on health related stuff and so much, but that's fine. Some days you don't get time to spend with your family, and some days you don't get time to go to work, and some days you don't get time to work on your health. But on an average in the month, it should be fine, and across years it should be fine, and across your lifetime you should have done what you wanted to do it, in aggregate. So I think in aggregate, although I wish I was also had strong discipline to get the daily routine done, but it's a little bit of a, if I may call it a an artist's heart. I mean, I like to be spontaneous.
No, I can imagine, and that gives you the room to be in the present moment.
Yeah.
Like basically,
Yeah.
if we are structuring our day with a very fixed regimen or routine, then we are just saying no to so much which
But
can
that's
come
also
in that
valuable,
moment.
Ishwaku. So I don't
Okay.
want to give any impression that that's not valuable. People have done amazing stuff because they've brought that discipline to their lives. But it's not me, so I'm not fighting it. I'm generally responsible and disciplined, but not very granularly so.
Interesting.
It's you finally you have to be who you are.
Absolutely.
And you have to see that
And
it serves you.
and you have to be because sometimes even I feel like I feel the best if I wake up at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Like may not wake up at 6 a.m. and but that gives me a good amount of energy at that moment and I
Yeah.
feel refreshed, so that's okay.
Yeah, wake up, and if it's a great day, then go out and spend that extra hour, as they say, looking at the clouds, and and come back and get to work. I mean, so it works. Whatever works for you works.
Yeah. And being an entrepreneur, we have that flexibility of like, okay, today I just want to spend time at
Yes.
home,
And that's a
and that's a
privilege.
great luxury and
That's a
privilege
huge
to have.
privilege to have, to be able to be, as they say, one of the biggest things in designing your life. And what humans in general crave is this autonomy and this freedom over their time. What people want most. And one is privileged to have had it and worked on it, and a lot of people don't, is the autonomy or the control over their time. And that can, that's something that I would have really missed if I didn't have this freedom. So we have freedom.
No, that's great, sir. And you could design that from the early start of your career.
And I'll
so
give
that
you an
will-
anecdote here. I have
Yes,
a
sir.
metaphor
Yeah.
for this. And this was 25 years ago. It was an interview or whatever. And they asked me a similar question. I remember it because I love that phrase and it's about me. And it says that I've always tried to be in life's aisle seat.
Okay.
I cannot physically, actually, I cannot travel if I have a middle or a window seat. I will cancel my trip to USA if I have a middle seat. I need that freedom to get up, walk around, not feel constrained, not say, excuse me, are you sleeping, and not jump over a guy. So life's aisle seat.
Beautiful, man.
So I've believed in life's aisle seat, and I've designed so that I can be in life's aisle seat. Everyone's been supportive, kind. God's been great, so it's working. And but it's just how you're wired. For me, some people enjoy the window seat and they look out and they look at the beautiful mountains, and I respect that. I just need my quote unquote freedom, even if it's that small.
So that's so valuable and tempting as well. Like
It's
now,
whatever works
having
for you.
tasted the fruit, now I realize that that is something so much
Yep.
flexibility and time is far more valuable in life.
Yeah, and it's just almost all of humanity. Everyone's looking for freedom in various forms. In political systems and at work, the gig economy. We all are, I think, attracted to having autonomy and freedom. And so in designing your life, if you can design it, if that's important to you, then that's great. For me, it was.
And sir, during your workshops, you also talk about reframing, which is a very powerful tool you use. So can you share some examples which you have used from your business perspective for reframing of the problems, and that helped to solve and look the problem in a new perspective altogether?
Yeah. I think, reframing is a designer's superpower. If there's one skill that I ask or really urge people to build the muscle is the reframing muscle. And basically what it does is it frames the problem in a different way. Yeah. And when you frame it in a different way, the solution space opens up. And suddenly things start to move in a certain, things open up. So, one is reframing all the time. And I think so are you, and so are we, and so is everyone. But to build that muscle and to use the tools and techniques is, I think, very powerful. And I'll give a more stark example from the outer world.
Yeah.
Rather than myself, is someone had gone and I think asked the chairman of Rolex, how's the watch business? And he said, I don't know. And he said, how come you don't know what's the watch business like around the world? And they'd reframed some years ago, and he said, no, we're in the luxury business. So that opened up the whole space. If you see all these other companies now, they're in the luxury space. They're not in the handbag space. They're not in the watch space. They have all the product lines. So a reframe went from here to here. Nokia had 95%, 99% of the market share. They were the world's most amazing cell phone company. Someone reframed outside of Nokia, and they said, we don't want a phone, we want a device. And that reframe of going from phone to device opened up the whole space. So today, that device in our hand, the last thing you look for is voice quality when you buy your phone today. It does everything because it's a device. And so you can innovate and add so much more because it's a device. Otherwise, and look at where Nokia is today. So the frame constricted them, and the reframe opened up the whole space. Now that sounds trivial or easy, but it took a lot, and a multi-billion-dollar company went under the rug. But there are tools to continuously learn reframing in your personal life or in your venture or otherwise, and see things differently. And I think it really works. It really, really, really.
No, it's a very powerful tool, and I have also experienced myself. But what are some of the simple tips to build that muscle of reframe? Something like more granular in terms of the.
Yeah. How do you start to reframe? It's a whole workout, but let me just say a few things. One, you challenge the assumptions. So whatever you look at the frame and you challenge, what are the assumptions that are constraining you to frame it in a certain way. And then what you would do, I would say, is there are tools, but you start to say, okay, what are the things adjacent to my box? Okay. Then you start to benchmark with other places and other people and other companies. So there's a suite of tools you do where you start to wire yourself to ask yourself, why is this even true? Because what is the assumption that makes this true? And what I like is that when we start to challenge that, it suddenly the space opens up. We have so much assumptions about everything, and then we go click, 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 click. But the starting premise leads all this. But if you shift that, so there's a lot of tools and approaches, but without getting into it. But the most important one is to look at the starting point, which is the starting. What's the assumption, or what's the supposition or the truth from which everything else is getting derived? So as they say, go back to first principles. But this is just an instance of that, going back and checking your assumption. So what makes this true? Because everyone said so, because everyone's been doing it for so many years, because that's what society says, because that's the noises we heard, that's what social media says. If one can go back and start to, in real time, challenge where that's coming from, and once it's a muscle, you do that in real time, then you ask yourself, maybe that's not the truth that leads us to the next step and the next step. And when you challenge it and reframe it, then suddenly the space opens up.
So challenging the assumptions is the starting point, for reframing the problem.
Tools.
And basically you're kind of removing the building blocks altogether to begin with, and then see from an open space that whether we've been thinking in the right direction. And then you start looking at new solutions probably, because
you start to accept and challenge, and then you start to look at new solutions. So in the beginning, we would lose people, we'd feel bad. We were a small company that time. And then we'd reframe it to say that not how do you stop people from leaving, which of course we would do and try and build great culture and all that, but reframe to how can they be, even after leaving, ambassadors and quote unquote forever QAites for life. So now the whole our approach, our dialogue, conversation with them, their emotion, they're called forever QAites. It's a reframe. So the frame was, how do you stop attrition, became, okay, we'll accept it's a fact of life, people have to move on. And the reframe was, how can they be QAites for life? And that reframe led to lots of different actions. And today and our WhatsApp group is called Forever QAites. And it's not, again, just cute or a cliche, but, as alums, they've given us more business than I don't know how much we would otherwise do, because they're just your, friends and ambassadors and people outside for life. And then the dialogue and the conversation changes. So we don't get upset if we just make sure that they're always then giving back. So it's a reframe, and the whole, thing with alums becomes the whole space opened up.
So what kind of things you do to engage them as part of the community? Just like
Actually,
forever.
It's really just, I would say, a relationship. If they see that from day one, they see that after they leave, if you're in touch, so there's no tactic or no process. It's just being part of their journeys in life, and they're continue to be part of the company's journey, and you have to be in touch. But it's really the energy of believing they're forever QAites is the magic. It's not a process, it's not a tactic. The energy of.
So basically, it starts from the day somebody joins the company, and then till the end they continue. So the same approach is reflected across.
Yes, from day zero. And it would be unfair to think that this very talented person should stay and be loyal for all their lives. So once you accept that and you reframe, but you do want them to be forever QAites, it works.
No, interestingly, you're talking about so much about the forever QAites. Now my interest is to know, what are some of the talent retention strategies a startup could have for attracting and, more importantly, retaining talent? Because it's very difficult to get people in a startup working, and talented people, and then secondly, they stick around for long.
Yeah. I'll give you a very interesting story. Again, it's counterintuitive. We had this girl, she was working there, then she left, then she went for her MBA. Then after her MBA, she joined another company. And then after 2 years, she applied back. So when she came back for the interview, I said, why are you leaving that company and why are you coming back? And she said, sir, every day they say, very nice, you did a great job, very nice, very nice. And think about it. Actually, the culture, people want to be challenged. People don't want praise every day. People want to work on something meaningful. People want to be on a mission. People want to be making a difference. They don't want very nice every day. And that was the penny drop.
That was like
it was like, and because we are doing something that's meaningful. We are doing it with a certain, we're not so, generous with praise unless someone's done something really well. The culture, and that retains people, because you know what? No one wants an easy life. Everyone wants to do something meaningful. So I think that's designing your life concept as well. That's what makes people stay more than anything, to be doing something meaningful, rather than being a nobody in a big machinery in the cog in the big chain, where if you were absent, no one would even care or notice and nothing would change. So that's called significance. And in the designing your life literature and otherwise, what's the meaning of meaning? Everyone wants meaning, but what's the meaning of meaning? And one of the things is significance, which means I matter.
So people are looking for challenges, people are looking for growth, and that is what drives them. And I
Actually-
think growth is a more important driver. What personally I've
Yeah.
realized that ultimately all of us want to continue to grow, and that is what keeps us moving and growing.
I hear you, Ishwaku, and I would just add to that. Yes, it
Yeah.
is growth, but I want to, and that's what designing your life is also bringing in. And the research shows it's also meaning. You can keep growing, and you can become director, and then partner, and senior partner, and then managing partner. Unless there's meaning, you do feel hollow at the end of the journey or in the middle. And we've had so many people in Designing Your Life attend who are, without naming, from the big fours, from large global companies. They're IIT, Stanford, consulting, they've come back and they're not feeling so fulfilled. So, and they've been growing all their lives. Their salaries have been growing. Their span of control has been growing. Their skills have been growing. But someday, somewhere, you wake up and say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And so I would argue that all that's important, and I'm not disregarding or putting that aside, by the way. Everyone wants growth and learning, and I'm all for it. But the thing that we're putting to focus, and what research has shown and what Designing Your Life does, is that in that journey, what's the meaning making that's going on? Because that's what keeps people, feeling fulfilled.
So it is the meaning what organizations can provide to their employees,
Yeah.
and specifically the Gen Z employees and early millennials,
yes.
they are looking more for meaning than
Absolutely.
even the salary package.
Absolutely. There's opportunities. They'll earn their salary, but they want to do something that's meaningful, and they've grown up like that because they haven't grown up in a world of scarcity. See, maybe we and our parents, I would be like, okay, secure our future, secure the house, secure, buy the thing, everything. I think the new generation sees that and is not insecure about the basics. So when that's taken care of, obviously, more so, although in the past, but more so now, people want some meaning in what they're doing. And that doesn't mean you drop it and stop your job and join an NGO. Meaning can come from different ways. So I think that's going to make a difference. And that's what the research is also showing by Harvard, Stanford, and all these people. The Science of Happiness Lab that Arthur Brooks has, Stanford with Bill and everyone, there's so much pointing to meaning making. So much
interesting. And interestingly, my daughter, she's 9, and she says she wants to save the planet.
Okay,
Like
see?
at the age of 9, I would
Nice.
not even think of
That's so lovely to hear.
that and she has this interesting idea that how can we look for an alternative material for paper.
Nice.
So so that's
It's nice, I think it's a whole new generation, and it's just so nice to see that they're thinking like that. So encourage.
yeah, definitely. Like we keep on pushing her in that direction. Whatever she wants to do, you can be the best in that area.
No, I hear you.
And sir, have you been following Brian Johnson? Like, have you heard of
No.
him? So, like, he's a person who is trying to design his entire life around the concept of aging backwards and trying to live forever.
Interesting.
So he's on a mission called Don't Die. So. So he's designed his entire life. He was also an entrepreneur earlier, and now his entire mission and focus, his work is like a laboratory around how he can age backwards in terms of different organs and can he attain immortality. So that is the mission. Now, all of us, but most of us, our lives are designed around our work, and it is the work which predetermines our choices around life. So having studied these frameworks, what is your sense? Like, should the work design our life, or it should be other way around, life design our work?
Right. Two comments. One is about, aging backwards or being immortal or lengthening your life. To whoever wants to do that, do that. I don't want to do that. Okay. So just as I know there's a lot of also articles and also in the happiness lab and all, longevity is a big thing. I think it's okay whether you live till 75 or 85 or 95. That's now. So the second part of your question is around, do you design your life? Which comes first, designing your life or designing your work?
So work designing your life or life designing your work? Basically, most of the times it is our work designing our other life choices and priorities.
I
So,
hear you. In designing your life, there's this wonderful statement or something that we say, and I think where did I read this? Simone Stolzoff or somewhere, but it says that designing your life is about having a great career inside of a great life.
yeah.
So I think now, however, it's not I will design my life and then I will have great careers and work. It's not if I design my work well, then I will have a great life. And I think it's simultaneously both go on in small steps and the dance of this continuously. So there is no one project called Design Your Life and now I can design my work, or the other way around. It's happening like this. So you're doing bits of life design, bits of work design, bits of life design, bits of work design, and they have to be aligned and in coherence. You have to live in coherence. So a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, but throughout that little of this, are you in coherence? Which means, are these two things aligned? So that's how I would look at life design and work design.
No, and truly, our life is also somewhat integrated, wholesome of the work and whatever we are doing. So everything is affecting each element of the life. If we touch one element, it automatically touches the other element as well.
And I would also argue that, life and work aren't two different things. It's not two different boxes. It's not like one is touching the other. They're not different. Work sits inside of life. So this whole thing about work-life balance and all, I mean, what is work-life balance? I mean, isn't work life? Work is so exciting to life, so integral to life, so much part of life. Why do we have a false dichotomy at this is life and this is work, and it's a zero-sum game and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't see life and work, the dichotomy between life and work. So you're designing life means you're also designing work.
True.
Because they're not different things. They're this is part of that.
And personally, I've realized that when we start putting creative energy into the work, so basically whenever putting creative energy, then it's coming from a place of love. And that is automatically so much refreshing. Then it's no more stress or work for you. Like basically you're enjoying the moment.
Yeah.
You're just being in that moment.
Sure.
With whatever you're doing. So that's so interesting.
Yeah. So
I see a lot of focus and energy in whatever you're doing for the Designing Your Life framework, and so beautifully you're spreading the message across to universities, engaging educators, and making it part like a mission of your life. So that is what I see, that you're on a mission right now. What does success mean to you at this point of time? Like you've had it all almost.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
So I don't know what it means, and I don't even go for success.
Yeah.
Okay. I never have. And I'm, again, not just saying that. I'll tell you what I aim for.
Yeah.
And if I get that, then you can call it success, but it's a little, 2-3 things I aim for across the years I've seen and as I reflect, and that's been me. One is, whatever am I doing, am I generally at peace? With my profession, with my family, with myself, with whatever. If you're not at peace, something's wrong. Okay? And that's not success to me. The second thing that I've been after, or has been an attribute, or what I will aim for is, does it make me alive, feel alive? And that's very important. And if there's monotony, and then I don't feel that's a life well designed for me. And I'm no judgment on anyone. it needs to come alive. It makes me feel alive. And the third and last thing that I have been, after or as part of my dashboard is does it make a difference? So it's not just me. So the history of whatever I've done, all three elements have been there. I don't want to be just the saint and make a difference. I don't want to be just, someone and just be alive without being at peace. So to me, it's been a balance. My designing my life was a balance between these three elements. And if I can have all these three, you can call it quote unquote success, but it's just what I am after. Am I at peace? And all through my years and years, have I felt alive all through my years and years? And whatever I've done, does it make even a little difference? One doesn't have to change the world or no ambitions like that, but does it make any difference to anybody? And I like to do stuff that'll have some little in my own modest way make a difference to stuff. And that's what I've been after. So that's in some sense what I'm after. We can the nomenclature we can use as success, but that's what I've been after.
So peace, being alive, and making a difference. That is your ikigai at this point of time.
Yeah.
No,
Whatever
so
I do, I need these three elements.
These three elements.
And it's not two elements. See, if I get two elements, I don't still feel so good about it. I need to have all three.
It's a superset of all three.
Whatever I'm doing. So in designing your life mission also, it has got me alive. I'm certainly at peace with it because of whatever reason it's and it's making a difference. Or the entrepreneurial journey, I was as alive as one could be. The space we were in was making a difference to the story called, if I may say so, IT India's story and the difference to the people. And I was at peace then also. And any other hobbies that I do, whatever. So that's what I strive for. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But if one of the three elements is missing, I know I need to reflect and pivot or fix it.
Oh, beautiful, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your learnings and journey. Any parting message you want to share with the audience about designing your life framework or your experiences?
Parting message. I don't want to. Let's just say that you can design your life and go for it and design it to whatever works for you, and the framework allows for it. Irrespective of the framework, we are all life designers, happy designing, and I wish you all a happy, flourishing life.
Thank you so much for such an interesting conversation we had today about designing our own lives, and we could learn from each other so much of the experiences. And interestingly, what one of the takeaways I carry is that designing your life is a paradox of reflection and action together.
Yep.
So if we can kind of club it together and take it forward, then we can start designing our own life with intentionality, and that is going to be so much beneficial.
Lovely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ikshwaku, for summarizing this beautifully, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Cool. Thank you.